Hello and welcome to Team Cardboard's Table Talk. We're talking about Age of Steam today. We've got Arie with us and William. And William's going to tell us why Age of Steam is his favorite game. So go ahead, William.
All right. So my tend to enjoy games that are about ergonomics. Sorry, not ergonomics, just getting stuff from here to there. And normally these sorry, I'm doing some feedback. Normally these games are about you get stuff, you bring it together, you make better stuff, and then you have train games, which are an interesting subset of that. And train games are all about getting stuff from here to there in the least effective way possible. The most inefficient way possible. Right. So, besides Age of Steam, there's multiple different versions of it now, but this is one's really my favorite. And this is not so much a game as it is a game system. If you just have the Age of Steam based game, I probably rate this a 6 or 7 because I'm not really a huge fan of the map that comes with it. What I find interesting about Age of Steam is you learn the base rules and the basic strategies, and then when you play, you use a different map each time, and it has new layout to figure out, and it has a few different rules. So you have to say, okay, how am I going to take advantage of the rules in this map? And that's what I find interesting about the whole system. I very rarely play the same map twice. There's a few maps that I really enjoy that I played repeatedly, but generally I like to play a different map every time because I enjoy the challenge of figuring out how to adapt to the rules changes. So the nice thing about this is, or at least from my play style, the nice thing about the Age of Steam system is that because it's a fairly low-luck game, but the rules are different every time, then whoever plays the best will usually win the game, but it's not going to be the person who's played the most necessarily and knows how to do everything. It's going to be the person who can figure out how to take advantage of the new rules. And since there's new maps that are coming out every year, then there's always a new set of rules that nobody's played with yet, so everybody can start out on kind of an even ground. I really enjoy that aspect of the game.
Cool. So, true confession time, and William already knows this because I'm sure we've played Age of Steam at some point. We've been gaming together for, I don't know, a long time, a decade probably or more. It's not that I'm not a fan of Age of Steam. I actually respect it as a design. Find it really interesting. It's definitely a great solid game, but I am terrible at it. So that's one of the questions I have for you, William, is what would you suggest to somebody who struggles? Specifically, what I struggle with is the network building. I can never seem to get out of the corner that I start in. I just kind of sit there and be stuck.
So, I've noticed that when people struggle in Age of Steam, it's generally for one or more 3 different reasons. The first one is that, they weren't paying attention to the rules for this particular map. I've been playing Age of Steam, not as much as I would like, but when I get the chance for about 15 years now, and anytime I've seen somebody go bankrupt, it's been for one of 2 reasons. Either it's a difficult map with sharps, or they weren't paying attention to map rules.
Fair enough.
I used to have a friend I played this with monthly, and sometimes we would just try to make each other go bankrupt.
Nice. Well, that's a game. That's like a mini game, right?
So, this game you can go bankrupt, but it's rare. The vast majority of the time, everybody makes it to the end. Doesn't mean everybody's competitive, but you just keep playing the whole time, which is nice. The second thing I find people do wrong is they don't boost the locomotive early in the game.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's that sitting in the corner.
So, in Age of Steam, you're picking up tubes and delivering them to cities of the same color by preferably going over as many of your links as you can. And for each link of yours that you go over, you get to boost your income. Now, early on in the game, you can give up a move in order to increase your train, your engine capacity. And this kind of hurts because you're giving up some income and you're also increasing your expenses for the rest of the game. But at the same time, it's a lot easier to give up a 1 or 2 income early on than just give up 4 income later. And if you don't do this, then you get to a point where, say, you're running for 3 or 4, and other people are running for 5 or 6, and you fall behind really, really quickly.
Right.
So, yeah, so early on, almost every map I'll be taking the locomotive action, which boosts your engine. I'll be taking that at least once, and I will be giving up a move a couple of times to make sure I get my engine up there. I really want to start getting those 3s and 4s as quickly as I can, and that not only increases my income, but it also means I have more options. Because even if I need to do it too, that's fine. But I want to at least be able to deliver more tubes, and the more range you have, the more options you have.
Gotcha. Well, I will.
Right.
I will have to take that tip of moving the locomotive early next time we play and see if that helps.
Right. And then the third thing is, so I talked about 2 things. The first one was kind of before the game, paying attention to the rules. The second thing was kind of early game. Early game needs to be increasing your locomotive. And the third thing is mid game. And this is once you're getting up to like about the 3 and 4 run, you really have to be planning your 5 and 6 runs. Even if you're just running for 3 right now, you should be figuring out, how am I going to make 6 link deliveries? So maybe I've got a city that nobody else can get to, and it's got a couple of red tubes on it. I should be planning ahead and figuring out, how am I going to make a 6-link route for to be able to deliver those red tubes. And like a lot of engine building games, most of the points come in the last few turns, when you're really making the big scores, the 5s and the 6s. And when I've been in a game where the scores are extremely divergent, it's generally because the people who are doing well have set themselves up to make those 5s and 6s, and the people who are not doing so well are staying stuck with 3s and 4s. And when you're making 2 deliveries a turn, that adds up really quickly.
Yep. So you've definitely got it figured out. I do not. Let's see what other questions we had. How much math is in the game? And for those who don't know, someone in this chat has a PhD in the field of mathematics. It's not me. But how much math is in the game, and how might folks who are not as strong in math or think they aren't as strong in math manage that?
Well, you definitely need to be able to count to 6. Your routes can be on most maps. The maximum length of a route is set some length. So then, at the end of your turn, the amount of money that you get or pay the bank is going to be equal to your income, which is how basically the sum of all the routes you've done, minus the number of shares of stock that you've issued, minus the length of your locomotive. So about the most difficult math that you'll get to towards the end of the game will be something like, I have an income of 30, and then I have a locomotive of 6, and I've issued 12 shares. So I take my 30 minus 12 by 6, I get $12. That's about as difficult as it gets.
So people really shouldn't be intimidated by the math, even though it's an economic game and it looks heavy because it's got that dry Euro-y art, right? So, but the math sounds, and as I remember, is fairly simple. It's more the efficiency or lack of efficiency, the efficiency at being inefficient, maybe.
Yeah, and most of the game, it's more like, okay, I have 8 income, 4 shares, 5 locomotives, so I need to pay the bank $1. That kind of math.
Right. Sure. Fair enough. Let's see. Arie, do you have any questions?
I do. So I have never played the game. So as someone who hasn't played the game, if it's my first time, what would be your top recommendation that I do?
So Well, first off, let me say there's a couple of different versions of Age of Steam. Now, the one I was holding up before, this is the second edition of it, which was very hard to find for a while, but it's been reprinted a couple of times. Third edition, I have not owned. It actually has little plastic trains instead of the nice wood tubes that I like. But there's another version. Steam. This is, the limited edition cover, but the regular one will just have this Steam icon here. And this is almost the same game as Age of Steam. The advanced version of it is Age of Steam with a couple of tweaks, but it also has a easier version, which when I first heard about it, I thought, I'm just going to do the advanced version. But the basic version is actually a lot of fun also. And it's basically Age of Steam, but it makes it a little more forgiving. So for a first timer, that's probably easier than doing the full version. With that said, I have taught a number of people Age of Steam using the full version. And generally the best thing is to, if you can get the maps, I guess that doesn't have too many of the interesting twists in it. As an example, I really like the first expansion, which is England and Ireland. That's got some fun stuff in it, but there's nothing that's particularly tricky to figure out. The only thing that I would really say to do is to do with like 3 or 4 players. The very first time I played Age of Steam, it was a 5 or 6 player game, and I don't like 5 or 6 player games. And it was on the base map that comes with the game, which I'm not really a fan of. And I actually didn't like the game very much. And it was a couple of years before I tried it again and then got really into it.
Okay, so give it a chance. Even if I don't like it the first time, trying something different.
Yeah. Are there any maps, William, that if somebody doesn't want to play for some reason a map of Europe or whatever, are there any maps in the like fantasy genre or non-geographic maps, non-real life geographic maps?
The thing with the Age of Steam system is anybody who wants to make maps for it. So there is a lot of variety out there. Most of the maps are real places, although people will take some liberties with them to get them to work. For example, here I have a map with the moon, and this is based on a very non-accurate interpretation of how the moon's rotation works. I'm also not aware of there actually being cities on the moon at this point, but I could be wrong about that.
Right, we don't know. Space Force.
There is a map that I'm really looking forward to playing at some point. I haven't read the rules yet, but it's by design I like, and it's called The Human Body. So you're actually delivering,
Wow.
I don't know what, but it's a map of a human body, and that's where you're delivering tubes.
Okay, so I'm down to play that one next time I'm in Wisconsin. William's in Wisconsin. I don't think I mentioned that. I'm from Wisconsin. Another one of actually 2 more of our team members are also from Wisconsin. Somehow we have this whole Colorado-Wisconsin connection going on.
So,
but
yeah, and I'm from Colorado. Everybody's going back and forth.
Right, yeah, we're just trading mountains for cheese or something. I don't know.
So, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. There's one map. I've heard it's not that great, but there's a map of Atlantis.
Oh, okay.
I haven't tried this one, but there's a map of Mars.
Cool. Yeah, no trains on Mars yet that I'm aware of either.
That actually makes me think of a question. So what makes you think a map is good versus a bad map?
So I played a variety of maps, and to me, a map is good if it's challenging. I played a map once which was the solar system, and it made it very easy to earn a lot of money. you should actually, you should go up to 7 length routes instead of 6. And we ended up calling the game a couple turns early because I got to the point where I was just making a ridiculous amount of income and finding way with the game. And that's not supposed to happen. There's actually a built-in balancing mechanism in the game, which is that after you reach a certain amount of income each turn, you lose some income. Basically, you have to pay your taxes, and that's supposed to avoid a runaway leader problem. But occasionally, you get a map that does have that runaway leader issue. Sometimes I enjoy a map just because it has an interesting idea, like that moon map that I showed you. As I mentioned, this is very inaccurate. The way they have it worked in is that the dark side of the moon alternates. So every turn, half of the stage on the moon are black, and then the other half are black. But it's not at all realistic, but it's an interesting idea.
Sure, that's some of that creative license that we sometimes take with game design, right? Just to make it work.
And there's some maps that depend on the group. But I mentioned I really like the England Ireland map because that has a few interesting ideas, but it's pretty straightforward for new players. So that's a map that I would bring out for people who haven't necessarily played Age of Steam before. On the other hand, last time I was at Board Game Geek Con, I played it with a group of very experienced players, and they brought out a map where all of the actions that you can take hurt you, and your goal is to get the ones that hurt you the least. And we actually had like 2 or 3 bankruptcies in that game. So there are a few designers. Like there's one designer I like, Alvin VR, who comes out with a lot of these maps, which has an interesting twist, but you really have to work at figuring out exactly how best to take advantage of the rules. And it may, the maps may beat you up a little bit, but they're not going to make it too easy on you. And I really enjoy the challenge of figuring out how to best take advantage of each map. So the ones where it's too easy to get tons of money, or if there's an easy way for a player to get locked in to one center of the map, but we realizes that and not be able to get out, that would be a map that I don't enjoy as much. I would say that the vast majority of maps I played have been in the okay to good range, where I enjoy playing them. They're not necessarily something that's really great. There's, I'd say, about 3 maps I played where I might, I don't want to play this one again. And there's a handful of maps where I might, I not only will I play this one again, I want to play this one again several more times.
Cool. So as long as we're talking about maps, it looks like, let's see, I made a note that there might be some maps that are a little controversial. I didn't really look too far into them, but it looks like there's a African diamond mines map, and one about a factory in Taiwan. Are you familiar with either of those?
I've heard of them, and in fact, I think I have them in my collection because up until 2011, I had all of the maps. Mm-hmm. So I probably got like somewhere between 80 and 100 maps at this point.
Wow. So there's enough variety.
To be fair, they're normally double-sided, but I haven't actually played them. So I can't comment on what's in them, because I haven't actually played those maps. As I mentioned, the system is pretty much open for anybody who wants to make a map. So you are going to get a lot of variety, and there are certainly maps that some people might find offensive. Just to give you a couple of examples off the top of my head, there is a map called Disco Fever, and in that one, you are actually delivering souls from hell up to earth, up to heaven. So I just see how some people could find that offensive. There are multiple maps which have politics involved. There's a Russian map where the red tubes are communism, and whenever you make a delivery, you lose some of it to corruption. There's a one rat map where the black tubes are oil, and you get extra points if you deliver them to the United States. Lots of variety.
Yeah. Well, so it sounds like if someone doesn't like a particular map, they've got literally dozens of different ones to choose from. So it should be fairly accessible to anyone that does want to play. They don't have to worry about just, I don't like this particular map or even these particular 10 maps. They've still got another few dozen to choose from for sure.
Right, and there's actually several designers who bring out a map pack every year. So you generally will have at least 6 new maps a year to choose from. And that's also the nice thing about it, is that even though some maps are hard to get, I have certain maps where they made 80 copies of them, and that's all there are. But even if you can't get a particular map, there's always a bunch of new ones coming out. And again, the game's been a lot easier to find also. When I first bought Age of Steam, I had to pay $100 to get a copy of Second Edition. But then they made Third Edition. They made Deluxe Edition, which I find a bit now. And then the Steam version, as I said, is basically Age of Steam with a few changes. I like Age of Steam a little bit better, but you can get Steam for like $35. So it's become a lot easier to find these days.
Yeah, that's a much more comfortable entry point for some folks for sure. Cool. Arie, did you have some more questions on your end?
Well, do I? I guess one of my biggest questions is I'm dyslexic and I have trouble reading, so I'm wondering how much text there is that is necessary for me to read to play the game.
There is essentially no text in it. So in some maps, the cities will have names, but you don't actually care what the names are. They're just there for decoration. The only real text on the game comes in the numbers. There's like the income goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Your locomotive goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and so the writing is the special abilities. So you have an option at the start of each turn where you will bid for the right to take one of the special abilities. So like there's the engineer, which lets you lay an extra track. There's locomotive, which increases your engine, so on. And those will be a 1-word description. And then a couple words describing what it does. But once you've been playing for a few minutes, you'll know what the actions do. And after that, you don't actually need to read the descriptions anymore. You just need to be able to see the words for engineer, locomotive, or whatever. And when you're bidding, you're actually not choosing the actions until the auction is over. So you don't even need to be able to read that at all. You just need to know which action it is that you want. So I would say that you could actually play this game without being able to read at all past numbers.
All right.
Cool.
Sounds pretty easy to get into and easy to memorize the stuff that you need to read.
And just very difficult to play well.
He's just going to keep rubbing that in. As I have proven several times, it is sometimes difficult to play well.
Yeah. I mean, it's very... A lot of train games are really... could be abstract games, but they have a train theme. Age of Steam, as we discussed, is kind of about setting up a network and just getting things from A to B. But it doesn't even necessarily have to be trains. I'm assuming that the human body, when you're probably not actually trains, a couple of them, a couple of the maps, it's trains in space. And I'm guessing that the train going through a solar system is actually a spaceship and it's not really on track, so that I don't know for sure. But it's really just about your strategy and setting up your long-term plans for how to build your network.
Cool. Well, William, thank you for sharing your favorite game with us tonight. We're going to be talking to some of our other content creators over the course of the next few weeks about their favorite games, and hopefully I won't be terrible at all of them. But you can follow us at Team Cardboard. You can go to our website, www.teamcardboard.com. We are on Facebook, where we're giving away a copy of Aquatica right now. Once we hit 500 fans, we are up to about 100 right now in just a few days. That is Team Cardboard Community on Facebook. And we will be officially launching on April 4th. So thanks again, William and Arie, for joining us tonight. And we will see you soon. Bye, everybody.